Hi, my name is Dave, and this is the Fasting Journal. I've started this YouTube channel because I wanted to share my experience with fasting. Basically, 5 weeks ago, I started what I refer to as a micronutrient fast. Now, I lost 43 pounds in 5 weeks. When I started, I was about 249 pounds. Today, this morning, I was 206 pounds. Now, I did a lot of thinking while I was fasting, and I thought, well, I should share my experience. Then I thought, no, why share your experience? Plenty of people out there are fasting. But as I started to watch more YouTube videos on fasting, I found something very interesting. And that is that a lot of people do fasting, but they don't necessarily do it in a way where it's very good for them or that they don't feel very good. So I thought the most important thing to do was to share my experience, because my experience has been very, 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 very good. And I wanted to show why I felt my experience was good and what I did during the fast to have that good experience. The second reason I really wanted to make a YouTube video on this was because I really want to stress, do not water fast. I don't think it's safe, I don't think it's healthy, and I think it's going to be a lot harder for you if you actually water fast. And we'll talk a little bit about why as we go through this video. Most importantly, what I want to do is I want to create a forum where people who are interested in fasting can share their ideas and their stories. I'm not here to convince you to fast. If you're not interested in fasting, don't fast. But if you are interested in fasting, don't water fast. Do a micronutrient fast. Let's talk about what that means. I'll share my experience, and we can see in the end whether it's something that you're interested in or not. So first of all, I want to talk about why I chose fasting. Basically, I had been suffering from sleep apnea for about 6 months. And if you've ever had sleep apnea, you know it's not very fun. You feel like you're pulling an all-nighter, you're always tired. I was also having a lot of back problems. And when I went to the doctor for my sleep apnea, and when I went to the doctor for my back problems, both of them said, Dave, you really got to lose weight, because if you do, both of these problems will really be much more improved. And so I went on a search for a new diet. Now, I've been up and down my whole life. The most I've ever weighed was 275 pounds. The least I've ever weighed was 175 pounds in my adult life. So you can see I fluctuate by about 100 pounds, and I think I've lost more weight than I weigh. I've tried a lot of different diets, and when I was looking to lose weight again, and again I wanted to lose it fast because I was really not feeling well, I found this book. It was entitled The Obesity Code, and it's written by an endocrinologist by the name of Dr. Jason Fung. When I read the book, the first half of the book was really quite incredible. Dr. Fung takes you through the history of nutrition, talks about the different macronutrients, a little bit about micronutrients, why you should eat certain foods and why you shouldn't eat certain foods. So I was very happy with this book. I learned a lot, and I believe the contents in it are really applicable, and a lot of the stuff really resonated with me. And I thought, this was the first part of the book. I thought, this is great. I love this book. And then I got to the second part of the book. And at the second part of the book, Dr. Fung says, and the answer is fasting. I was horrified. I couldn't believe it. I thought, no way. I can't fast. I mean, I'm the guy that when I'm going to get on a plane ride, from New York to Los Angeles or something, I would eat before I got on the plane. I would buy food, so I would have food on the plane, and then I would eat when I landed. I just didn't miss a meal. So fasting, no way. There was no way I was going to do this. I thought, I've wasted my time reading this whole book because there's no way I'm doing that fasting. But then I started thinking, well, let me just hear what he has to say. And what was really interesting about the second part of the book is there are many different types of fasting. There's intermittent fasting and there's long-term fasting. Now, Dr. Fung doesn't necessarily promote long-term fasting. When he talks about a longer-term fast, he seems to me to be talking about a 4 to 6 day fast. So I'm a little bit outside of the curve on that at this point, but I'll explain why. I'll explain how I got there, and hopefully it'll all make a little sense. So I'm a big fan of this book. if you're interested in fasting, or even if you're just interested in learning a little bit about how your body works and why we have an obesity problem in the US, I really suggest Dr. Fung's book. It was an inspiration for me. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what I learned most importantly from Dr. Fung's book, and that is that there's a difference between fasting and starvation. And in my opinion, based on some reading that I've done since I've started fasting, I'm not really even sure that the nutritional community understands or respects the difference between the two, but there is a big difference. So first of all, starvation is less calories. It's basically, if your metabolism requires, let's say, 2,400 calories a day to keep your body going, starvation means you're eating less than 2,400 calories. That's starvation. It's a lower calorie diet. Obviously, starvation, as we think of it, is something much, much lower than just, you know, a few hundred calories less. Maybe it's 1,000 less. Fasting is different. Fasting is no calories, 0 calories. It means you're not eating anything. And the difference is that it puts your body in a much different hormonal situation. Now, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. What I'm relaying to you is really what I learned from Dr. Fung's book. So I would suggest that you read his book. He also has quite a few YouTube videos that you can watch. Most importantly, one of the things that I learned is that fasting reverses insulin resistance. Now, again, I'm not an expert, but what I've read and what I've been told is that insulin can cause weight gain. Now, everyone who knows a diabetic knows that insulin is important for putting glucose into your cells, glucose uptake. But when insulin can't get glucose into your cells because you have insulin resistance, the glucose goes off, and guess what it does? It builds fat. So if we eat too often, or we don't give ourselves fasting time, what happens is our insulin resistance increases, and that insulin that's sitting in your body waiting to get rid of the glucose goes off and stores fat. And the glucose sits there. So your body says, hey, I've got high glucose. It makes more insulin, hence more fat. Very interesting concept. Again, I encourage you to read Dr. Fung's book to get a little bit more into that. And also, from what I learned, is that fasting causes a hormonal change. Now, it puts you into ketosis, and ketosis is when you're burning fat. You're burning fat for energy. You're not burning glucose for energy. So it does cause a hormonal change. And apparently, from what I've understood, that hormonal change is different from when you're starving. So your body is in a much different place. Now, for me, sometimes I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of reading. If you don't have time to read Dr. Fung's book, there's a very good YouTube video. It's called Fasting versus Eating Less. What's the difference? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to this video into the comments, and you can take a look at that video yourself. And I think you'll find it very informative, and it gives a much better description of the differences between fasting and starvation than I've given you here. But this is the basis, and this is really these facts that I've put up here are the basis for why I chose to fast. So basically, let's talk about week 1. What I want to do here is I want to explain what it was like for me during this fast. Now, your experience might be different, but I felt it would be really useful to talk about what happened during that first week, what I was thinking and what I was doing, and why I went from just thinking I was going to do a short-term fast to doing what I believe to be is a relatively long-term fast. I'm at 5 weeks now. So first I decided, well, okay, I'm going to try an intermittent fast. And an intermittent fast is basically where you eat for a certain period of time and then you don't eat for a certain period of time. So say, for example, what I was going to do was I was going to eat from 12 noon to 8 o'clock at night. So I was going to have my lunch somewhere between 12 and 2, and I was going to have my dinner somewhere between 6 and 8. And then I was not going to eat for that 16 hours between that time. And I was going to try that out. That was my plan. But what happened was, on the second day, I did that on the first day, and it was fine. I've never been a big breakfast person, and that's another thing that Dr. Jung talks about. He says, if you don't really feel like eating breakfast, don't eat breakfast. I always ate breakfast because I felt like most people had told me, oh, you need to jumpstart your metabolism in the morning. And I believed it, because if I ate breakfast, I was hungry at lunch. If I didn't eat breakfast, I wasn't really that hungry. I would eat lunch, but I wouldn't be that hungry. So I thought, yeah, if I don't feel hungry, I haven't started my metabolism. I don't believe that anymore. And Dr. Jung talks about that. If you don't feel like eating breakfast, don't eat breakfast. So for me, it seemed like the 12 to 8 time for eating would be perfect for me. Now, I'm a nighttime snacker. I'm a nighttime eater. So there was going to be some calorie reduction in my diet because I wasn't going to be eating after 8 o'clock at night. I was big for like eating at 10 or 11 o'clock at night right before I went to bed. Not that that necessarily is so bad. The misconception that you have less metabolism at night is also another one that Dr. Jung put to rest for me. But eating after 8 o'clock at night was giving me many more calories and increasing my insulin production in my body late at night when I didn't really need it. So the first day I did that, that was fine. And the second day I was going to the back doctor and I was reading a little bit more into the book. And I started thinking about, well, you know, maybe I should just try to fast for a day, see what it's like. And by the end of the day, I thought this was the first day of my fast, but it was the day after I had tried the intermittent fast. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was leaving the doctor's office, and I was going to go have lunch. And I thought, you know, I've already done the morning. You know, why don't I just not have lunch? And I didn't have lunch, and it was a little bit strange. My body certainly wanted lunch. I got hungry, but then in the middle of the afternoon, I didn't feel so bad. And I thought, well, you know, if I cannot have dinner and make it, you know, maybe I could do this for a little longer. And I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but at some point I just decided, all right, I'm going to do a 4-day fast. This was something that Dr. Jung had talked about, a 4-day fast. I thought, what the heck? I might as well try it, see what it's like, and, you know, reverse my insulin resistance, right? So the first day was hard. Lunch wasn't so bad. Like I said, I wasn't so hungry at lunch. The afternoon was really okay. The hunger came in a wave. We'll talk about that a little bit more because that's how hunger comes when you're doing a fast. Dinner came, and that was a little bit tough. But what I did was I had some teas. I had a little bit of coffee. I drink black coffee. We'll talk a little bit later what to do if you you know, can't drink black coffee or don't drink black coffee or don't want to drink black coffee. I personally prefer it. So that night was a little bit tough, and I would say it was a hard day. So the first day was hard. Now, day 2, and I was committed at this point. Day 2, very hard. Day 2, by far for me, was the hardest day of the fast. The first day was a little surreal, and it was a new experience. Second day, you're just like thinking, oh, I don't know. I don't know if this is a great idea. Breakfast, I was hungry. The hunger waves went away. Lunch came around. I got hungry again. The hunger waves went away, but they were pretty strong. I really wanted to eat. My body was saying eat. The afternoon went along. I was keeping myself busy at work. I wasn't so busy that it was hard to not eat. Dinner time came. It was pretty tough. So what I did was I basically went to bed a little early that night, and I was really intrigued by this notion that I had heard, read about in Dr. Jung's book. He mentions it, and I had heard through looking at a couple of YouTube videos that after the second day you feel much better. And I thought, you know what, if that's true, it may not be true for me, but I thought if that's true, I just really want to try it. So I just went to bed. I think it was like 8 o'clock. I went to bed at night. Normally I'm a 11 or 12 midnight type of person going to bed that late. But I went to bed at 8 o'clock. Third day, it was amazing. I woke up, I wasn't hungry at all. I felt pretty good that day. When lunch came around, yeah, my stomach gave me a hunger wave. It wasn't as strong as the second day. I felt better than I did the second day. I had more energy, and I went on the afternoon. I had hunger waves came, I would say at that point on the third day, they probably came about once an hour, but they would go away. And I think this is an interesting thing. You have this concept, I had this concept that you're just going to keep getting more and more hungry. But what was amazing to me is on that third day, I felt less and less of hunger with each wave. It would come, I would have a coffee or a green tea. I didn't want to drink all that coffee, so I was having green tea. It was really great. It tasted good. I found some other teas. I experimented with teas, and they were really good. I think I drank like maybe, I don't know, the first few days probably 10 cups of tea a day, just to really sort of give myself something to do to get through that hunger wave, and to keep working. Keep yourself busy. Keeping yourself busy is good. But by the end of the third day, I was thinking, you know what? This isn't so bad. But I was really looking forward to eating again on Friday night. So I'm coming home from work, and I was sitting there waiting for the subway, and I decided to look on YouTube and see, well, you know, what are other people doing? I'd looked at a few videos, but they were more like videos from a professional who says, this is how you should do it. You know, I'm a physician, I know. I wanted to see videos of people who had actually, you know, done it themselves. Sort of like what I'm doing here, just sharing my story so that you can see what a real person who's done it feels like and what it was like, what the experience was like. I saw this video by a guy, I believe his name is ProGamerJay. I'll put a link in the comments so you can watch his video. I suggest you watch it. Now, he did a water fast, and I don't suggest you do a water fast. We'll talk about why, but it's a very informative and very interesting video. And he said, you know, he did a 28-day fast. He lost like 50 pounds. And he said, you know, on the 4th day, I just felt amazing. And I was like, wow. You know, because I felt pretty good on the 3rd day. And he's like, the 4th day, I felt amazing. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I don't think I'm going to refeed on Friday night. I think I'm going to go more than 4 days if I feel good. We'll see how it goes. But I was kind of inspired to do a longer fast. And one of the reasons I was inspired to do a longer fast, if you see on this video here, you see, this was when I started. Right here is when I started. This is the 1st day. This is the 2nd day. And right here, this is that 3rd day. If you see that, I'm losing about 2 pounds a day. I was ecstatic. I was like, wow, I'm losing 2 pounds a day. I could lose 14 pounds in 1 week. We'll talk about that. It doesn't actually work that way. As most of you know who've been experienced dieters like me, you lose a lot of water weight in the beginning. But I was just really feeling much better because I'm just dropping 2 pounds a day. It doesn't matter if it's water weight, you're not carrying that weight around, and I was feeling good. So I thought, well, why don't I just tough it out? So time went on. So we have the 1, 2, 3, this is the 1st day, 2nd day, this is the 3rd day, this was the 4th day, this was the 5th day. This was, I think this was Saturday morning. Let me just get this for a second, right? So this was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, this was Saturday morning, and Saturday was kind of a surreal day. So that was like the 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the 5th day. I was really tired on Saturday. I don't know why. I just was really tired. I felt like I didn't have a lot of energy. The hunger waves were not really coming on so strong now. They weren't really like every hour. They were maybe every couple of hours. Still, my body was remembering breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so it was a little bit harder around those times. But I just really didn't have a lot of energy on Saturday. And so I was thinking, you know, well, you know, maybe this isn't really working for me. Maybe a week is enough. I'll just tough it out. And basically what I did on Saturday night is I went to bed at 6 o'clock at night. And that was kind of my answer for when I really didn't have a great day. I would just sort of go to bed. And I understand a lot of people won't really have that option. You've got kids, you've got other things to do. I have a daughter, I have a wife, I have commitments, but Saturday night, it's fine. I'll just go to bed. Wow, I woke up the next morning and look at this. I dropped like 5 pounds. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, that was my body just like really sort of saying, what's going on? I'm just gonna burn up all this fat and get rid of it. So I was pretty excited about that. And the reason I was excited about that was because it was just a great weight loss. And it inspired me. It inspired me to keep going. So again, let's recap a little bit here. So basically, the 1st day was difficult. It was a little surreal. You know, like I said, it was a new experience for me. So I think it was okay to experience it, and it was fine. 2nd day, definitely the hardest day. I mean, I'm sitting here now at 5 weeks, and I can totally tell you the 2nd day is totally the hardest day. 3rd day, I was fine. I really felt okay. Yes, the hunger pains came. I shouldn't say pains. The hunger waves came and the hunger waves went. And I like I said, I drank tea. Again, like everyone else says, I guess, cliche, whatever, the 4th day was amazing. It was just a great day. 5th day, like I said, it was a tough day, but I went to bed. What was really amazing to me was that the hunger waves became less intense and they became less frequent. And that was really interesting to me. That was something that I had heard about and people had talked about it, but experiencing it is really a strange thing. And it's really something that I enjoyed in a way, because it was kind of new for me. It was sort of like, you know, I haven't eaten in 5 days, yet I don't really feel that hungry. And to me, that was so incredible. All right, let's talk about week 2. So what I've done here is I've blocked out week 1. I've color coded it. As you can see, I lost almost 2 pounds per day. So in the 2nd week, I didn't really lose weight that fast. I lost about 1.5 pounds per day. And if you look closely at this data, and I really want to show you this data. I call it data. I consider it data. This is my weight loss data. You see, on certain days, I was losing 2 pounds a day, and then the next day I'd lose 1 pound. And it was almost like clockwork, right? You see, this is 2 pounds, this is 1 pound. This is 2 pounds, this is 1 pound. This is 2 pounds, this is 1 pound. This is 2 pounds. So it was a pretty interesting experience. I was really stoked about the weight loss. And I was pretty happy about that. But of course, the really strange thing about the 2nd week was I basically had no hunger. I can't explain it, but the hunger waves stopped and I really felt pretty good. It was kind of amazing to me. I didn't get the hunger waves. Now, I knew I hadn't eaten. I was looking at other people eating and I was like, yeah, I really like to eat. There's that social component to eating and your family and your feeding and everything, but I really didn't feel hungry. Now, there was a problem though, and the problem was that I was very thirsty. And you'll hear people, or if you watch the videos about the water fasters, they'll say you get really thirsty, it's really important to drink water. But I think there's a little more to that. I was really drinking a lot of water. For example, if I took a drive in the car, I took a bottle of water with me. Now normally I wouldn't do that, but that was something that I really felt that I had to do while I was in that 2nd week. So I was a little bit concerned about that. So I started thinking about salt, and maybe I wasn't getting enough sodium chloride. One thing you have to understand is that we are 70% water, but it's not pure water. We're actually 0.9% sodium chloride. So what I believed was happening during that 2nd week is that my body was dehydrating because I was losing salt. And so there was less salt in my body. So in order to maintain 0.9% sodium chloride, your body's got to get rid of water. So I believe a lot of that weight loss that I had in that 2nd week was actually water loss. And as we see more and more about my weight loss trends over these next few weeks, you'll see I think the data bears that out. So in this period, I was losing about 1.5 pounds per day. Now you see, again, the 2-1-2-1. You see, when I started my 3rd week, you can see I lost 1, I lost 2, and then all of a sudden, I didn't lose weight. Right here, look, I didn't lose weight for 1, 2, 3, 4. So for 5 days, I stayed at the same weight. And so you're probably thinking, well, what's going on? And we'll talk about that. But again, 3rd week, no hunger. The hunger waves were gone. Now, again, I knew I wasn't eating, and I felt like I could eat if I wanted to, but I didn't get that hunger wave. I didn't get a growling stomach. I didn't get that desire to eat. Just didn't happen. Okay, but again, that 3rd week, I was really, really thirsty. And I was talking to a friend, and she said, why don't you try taking some salt and putting it in your mouth? And I did, and it was really bitter. And I was like, nah, I'm not gonna be able to do this. So what happened here? What happened in this period where I didn't lose any weight? What I did was I decided that I really needed to get salt. I looked around for things that I could consume that would give me the salt but not give me any calories. And I discovered, very interestingly, as I was reading through different products, pickle juice has a ton of salt in it. And it also has vinegar. Now, one of the things I didn't mention, and this was something that Dr. Jung had mentioned in his book, is that basically apple cider vinegar, it helps you digest. And so what I had been doing in the first few weeks, and I really enjoyed this, I've been taking a couple of teaspoons of apple cider in a small glass of water, and it really tasted great. I just sort of did it because I thought, well, this is something someone suggested. And to tell you the truth, you know, when you're fasting, even though you're not hungry, you still kind of miss that flavor sensation that you get. That's why I was trying different teas and doing different things. It's kind of a delight for your mouth, and it keeps you a little occupied when you're like watching other people eat, or you want to do something social. So pickle juice was very interesting. Now, I'm not saying pickle juice is for everybody. When I wasn't fasting, I never liked the taste of pickle juice. I love pickles, but I never liked the taste of pickle juice. But I have to tell you, it was amazing. It tasted amazing to me. I actually look forward to it every day because it just tasted so great. But again, that's probably because I was fasting. Now I'm going to take a drink because I'm still thirsty. All right, so I drank the pickle juice, and basically what happened at that point, I believe, this is my nomenclature, I didn't speak to a professional about this is my personal opinion, I believe I had a salt correction going on here. So basically what I believe is happening in this third week, in these 5 days where I weighed the same, my body was taking in the water I was drinking and keeping it. And it was keeping it because I had given my body the salt that it needed to really keep that weight. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, you know, you had all these days where you weighed the same, you weren't losing any weight. No, I don't think so. I think during that time I was burning fat, because basically during those 4 days where I was a little nervous at first, I went down a belt buckle. I had to actually point my belt up by one whole strand in these days where I didn't lose any weight. So for me, it really kind of taught me that this was a salt correction, and I'll refer to it as a salt correction. So one of the things I would say is, you know, you really want to make sure you have the salt. You can drink as much as you want, but if you're not taking in the salt, your body's not going to hold the water and you're going to be dehydrated. And this is what I think happens when you see a lot of the water fasters who say, yeah, I lost 50 pounds. Like, for example, ProGamerJay lost like 50 pounds in 28 days. I did not lose 50 pounds in 5 weeks. So I fasted for longer, but lost less weight. But I took in my salt and I kept my water. I think I'll get that benefit back in the end because I won't gain as much weight. Who knows? We'll see. But that's my thing. And I also felt a lot better. Okay, so let's talk about week 4. Now you see in week 4, I'm losing weight again, right? The salt correction is over. I'm losing about a pound a day. And this was pretty interesting because I have a hypothyroid condition, so I take Synthroid, and when I go to the endocrinologist, every few visits, he sort of tests my metabolism. And he'd always said to me, you know, Dave, you're burning about 3,200 calories a day. So, you know, you should have no problem losing weight. Just eat 500 calories less. Well, that never worked for me. Now I know why. It's the whole insulin resistance when I'm eating and not giving my body time to overcome that resistance. But as you can see here, I'm burning on average about a pound of fat a day. And that sort of blends because if you look online, people say that a pound of fat is 3,500 calories. There's some controversy. Some people say it can be as low as 2,700. Some people say it's 3,200. But basically, what my endocrinologist had told me about my metabolism and what I'm burning every day, 1 pound a day, really makes me believe that that's basically what's going on. So basically up here, when I was losing 1.5 pounds per day, I was really only losing a pound a day of fat, and that extra half a pound was really water. I was dehydrating myself, so it wasn't real weight loss. That's why I call this a correction, a salt correction, because in these days I was making up for that extra weight loss that I had here, and you can see that trend right here. So that's kind of one of the teachings that I felt. It's one of the notions that I really wanted to get across and really make this video, is to really just show you got to take in salt. You really have to take in salt. All right, now I want to talk a little bit more about the 4th week. Now, I still wasn't hungry, but I was very lethargic, very tired that 4th week. And I really didn't know what was going on. And part of me was thinking, you know, maybe this isn't working. Again, this was one of those things I had said to myself, I'm not going to do this if I feel bad. If I feel bad, I'm not going to do this. In that 4th week, when I had no energy, though, I want to put this into context. I wasn't sleeping very much. I'm a big Destiny fan, Destiny 2 came out. I had been a little busy when it first came out, but I started playing it. So I was staying up late at night playing that video game, getting about 6 hours sleep a night, which normally would be fine for me if I don't have sleep apnea or I'm not fasting. But fasting, I gotta tell you, you really need to get your sleep. You need to get at least 8 hours sleep and you'll feel better. That means a change in your lifestyle for some of us, but I think it's worth it. Second, in addition to not sleeping that much, I had a sinus infection. I had had a procedure on my nose for sleep apnea early in the fast. Didn't affect my fast. The fast didn't affect my nose condition, but I started to develop a sinus infection. I got that taken care of, and in week 5, I felt good again. So I realized at that point that I really wasn't doing what I needed to do in terms of getting the right amount of sleep. And if you have a cold or something, it could have been a common cold. For me, it was a sinus infection. Your body's just fighting two things at once, and that's why you don't really have. That's why I really didn't have the energy on that 4th week. So I can't say right now that the 4th week would be good or bad for anybody. It was tough for me in terms of energy. Again, still not hungry, but understand that I can't say so much about the week 4 because I had my own issues going on. So what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about the rates of weight loss that I had during the fasting period. So if you look here, the 1st week, and I've drawn a straight line here. Now these aren't mathematically derived lines. I just sort of eyeballed them, but I think they show a change. And you'll see, of course, that 1st week I'm losing about 2 pounds per day. In the 2nd week, you see the rates changed a little bit here. I'm losing about 1.5 pounds per day. If you study kinetics, you'll learn that a change in rate means a change in mechanism, and there was a change in mechanism. That 1st week, this was that traditional high amount of water loss that you have when you start any diet. Those of you who are experienced will recognize that. Now the 2nd week, this 1.5 pounds per day, as we've talked about already, there was a salt correction here. So as you see down here, I was correcting for the extra weight loss. And if you go down one more, to that 3rd week, you can see I was losing about 1 pound per day. And I think that pretty much balances out with the fact that I was losing a little bit too much water here. So I think what I was really doing throughout this whole course was probably losing about a pound of fat a day. But the water difference is what made it look like I was losing a little bit more early on. So normal water loss for weight. Dehydration period, losing a little too much water, really thirsty all the time. Correcting for that with the salt correction, and then actually this is the 4th week, fat loss at about 1 pound per day. So I felt pretty confident that I was keeping myself hydrated, and the weight I was losing during this period was really real weight loss, and of course the salt correction. So what I've done is I've sort of taken these lines, I've moved them over from here, and I've put them together so you can see the change in rate. So you see week 1, I have a pretty steep rate. Week 2, I have less of a rate, but a little bit faster than I should be losing weight. By the time I got to week 4, I think this was the real rate that I was losing. I was losing weight. So you see that change in rate over time. So the bottom line here is that you really do need to do the salt correction, the sodium chloride correction, so that you can keep your salinity. Now let's talk about week 5. Week 5, a little bit of a bump here. Not really sure why that happened, but you can see overall I'm still losing about a pound a day as we go through this period. And I want to talk a little bit about week 5 as well, because I felt a lot better in week 5. I felt like I had my energy back. I was sleeping better, which I think is important, as we discussed already, and I didn't have a sinus infection. So it was a pretty good week, and really encouraging to finish off the fast that way. I was pretty happy about that. So let's talk a little bit about what my micronutrient fast is. And I think some people will say, the hardline fasters will say, well, this guy really didn't fast because he did all these other things that you shouldn't do during your fast. I want to just let you know, you do what you want to do. You're not eating. You're reversing your insulin resistance. It's all good. There's no right way or wrong way to do it. The only wrong way to do it is to water fast and not take the micronutrients that you need and not get that salt that you need. That's my personal opinion. So what did I do? First of all, I drank mineral water. Now I'm not sure you need to drink mineral water, but I figured, why bother? You know, mineral waters are available. You can go right into the store and buy them. The one that I chose was Essentia. I liked the flavor. Core is another one that's good. I couldn't really find out how many minerals were in there, but there was calcium. They say trace minerals, so they don't really give you an amount, but I felt it was better than nothing to get a little bit of a mineral in my water. Second, pickle juice. I cannot stress enough that you really need to get salt in your body. Now for me, pickle juice was the answer. What I've been told, and my wife was telling me this, that some seltzer waters have a high salt content. So if you're more into seltzer water, you can drink seltzer water, but really get yourself that salt that you need. Don't dehydrate yourself. You're going to think you're losing more weight than you're losing. You're not going to be good for your body. You will become dehydrated. You can't drink water alone to keep yourself hydrated when you're fasting, even on a micronutrient fast. Okay, so also, and what makes this a micronutrient fast is every day I took a pretty good multivitamin. I took a multivitamin that has a lot of the minerals that you need and a lot of the vitamins that you need. I also took a supplemental vitamin E pill, and the reason I took a vitamin E pill is because I really wanted to take care of my skin. I thought my skin would need some oils to sort of you know, keep its elasticity and improve you know, improve its ability to stay I guess oiled, or you know, the way skin needs to be. Along those lines, I also took 2 capsules of flaxseed oil a day, at least, sometimes more, and conjugated linoleic acid. There are some studies out there that show in mice, I think the study was done in mice, that taking conjugated linoleic acid increases lean body mass and decreases fat mass. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I figured it wouldn't hurt to try, so that's what I did. Now, there's another reason that these are in blue here, and that down here below you'll see that the additional components I'm putting in black. And the reason is that I wasn't as diligent about the micronutrients that I put in black as I was the ones in blue. Every day, religiously, I had my pickle juice and I had my multivitamin, and I took that vitamin E pill. I think that's very important. So everything else that you're going to see down on the bottom are really good to haves, not really need to haves, but they're things that I found very helpful. So I took a potassium supplement. I was a little bit concerned that I wasn't getting enough potassium, like I wasn't getting potassium from my diet. I wasn't so convinced that there was enough potassium in my multivitamin, and I'd heard stories and watched some YouTube videos on people that would get leg cramps during water fasting because they weren't getting enough potassium. Now, I never got leg cramps, but I did take a potassium supplement. Again, not as religiously, but I did take it. I also took a mineral supplement, and what this is it was a multi-mineral supplement that had calcium. I think it had magnesium. I think it had a few other minerals that were good for you. So I would suggest that if you're a little bit worried about not getting enough from your multivitamin, supplementing with a mineral supplement is not a bad idea. Now, they say that there are 10 essential amino acids. That means there are 10 amino acids that your body cannot manufacture on its own. I decided at this point that this was about maybe 2 to 3 weeks in. I thought, well, you know what? I should really give myself some of the amino acids that I'm not getting through a diet, because I'm not taking in calories. So I bought a mixture of essential amino acids, and you can find these at any health food store or get them online at Amazon. And I think they're a good supplement. I can't say they're necessary, but I felt pretty good with them. Last, chondroitin and glucosamine. I normally take this even when I'm eating, because it's good for your joints. As I was getting older, I used to get sort of joint pain, and a friend of mine said, oh, you need to take chondroitin and glucosamine every few days. It'll really help. And it did. So I continued to take that. That's not really a micronutrient fast component. It's just something that I took because I take it normally. Now, one component here that's missing that I didn't put in these slides because I just started it recently in these 5 weeks is phosphate. Now, phosphate is very important for your body, and when I started reading about refeeding, what I found out is that some people can suffer from a low phosphate level when they go back on a feeding regimen. And I really was thinking, you know, I'm getting ready to come off my fast. I should start taking some phosphate based on some of the readings I did. I'm going to do a follow-up video on the refeed, what my process is going to be and what my thought pattern is and how to do that. One thing I want to say right now is that refeeding is very important. It's as important as the fast that you do. So just as important as it is to me to tell you, I really don't want you to water fast, you got to do refeeding properly. And I've been researching it, and like I said, I'm going to do a video on the refeed so that I can sort of hopefully overcome some of the problems that people have. And if you go on YouTube, most of the horror stories that you hear that people make videos on long-term fasts are because they're depleting their body of salt, over dehydrated, not getting the micronutrients that your body needs. All the enzymes in your body are functioning, but if they don't have the cofactors that they need, these vitamins and these minerals, they're not going to function. And this is going to cause problems. And refeeding is a separate issue that we'll talk about. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about special considerations. And this comes into play very often because a lot of people say, you've got to do a fast, you can't take any calories, you have to be very careful. And I didn't do that. I'm going to tell you about a few things that I did to adjust my fast to my lifestyle. And the things that I've learned, I think will help you. You'll find out if you watch a few videos that people will say, well, if you do anything but take water, you're going to get out of ketosis and you're no longer going to be burning fat. And I just don't buy that, and I think my experience will bear that out. First thing I want to say though is you should consult with your physician. I think that's sort of one of these things. If you have health issues or other things, you really shouldn't start something like this until you talk to your physician. Having said that, I didn't necessarily do that, but I did go see my doctor about the first week of the fast, and I got a blood test. My blood test came back great. And just today, I went back to the doctor and I got another blood test because I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing with micronutrients. And I'll probably do a follow-up video on that just to see, you know, to let you see basically whether I've done the right thing or not the right thing based on the micronutrient fast that I've explained to you. So I think I'm looking forward to that. I really want to see what my bloods look like, see how well I've done in terms of micronutrient. Okay, medicine with food. This is something that a lot of us face. You as we get older, you have to take medicine with food. So if you want to fast and you need to take medicine with food, what do you do? So I had that situation. As I mentioned earlier, I had a procedure on my nose for sleep apnea, and the doctor said, well, you know, you need to take this antibiotic, and you can't take it on an empty stomach. You need to take it with food. So I had sort of a dilemma, and I had to figure out what to do. So what I decided to do when I took my antibiotic at night is I took it with 3 ounces of muscle milk. Now that might sound kind of strange. I just happen to like muscle milk. Muscle milk has sugars in it, muscle milk has protein in it, and muscle milk has fat in it. So for sure I had an insulin response when I took those 3 ounces. And I don't know exactly how much is in there, but I think it's about 50 calories. So for about the second week, yeah, it was the second week, I took 3 ounces of muscle milk every night with my antibiotic. And you'll see during that second week, I was losing 1.5 pounds a day on average. Obviously, as we discussed, that was water weight, but I was still losing weight. So that muscle milk that I took in the evening didn't really hurt. And as a matter of fact, after I finished the antibiotic, for the next week, I just kept taking the muscle milk. I kind of enjoyed it. I've stopped since then, but I really wanted to do the experiment. I wanted to say, well, okay, if I go through this long period of time and I take the muscle milk, is it going to mess up my fast? Is it going to cause me to change my weight loss? And I don't think it did. Of course, in that third week, I was going through that salt correction, but as I mentioned, even as I was going through that salt correction, I knew I was losing fat because I had to adjust my belt buckle during that period. So I think that's something that you should take into account. Of course, if you're taking a medicine and you're fasting, you should really talk to your physician about that. Maybe for you, 3 ounces of muscle milk isn't going to be enough. Maybe there's something else that you should do. And of course, if you stop your fast, you haven't lost anything. You've still fasted. The time that you fast is really going to be good time. Even if you stop, take your medicine for a week, and then when you're done with your medicine, go on. You can go on, start fasting again. Okay. Alcohol. One of the things I learned in reading Dr. Jung's book and doing some other reading is that alcohol doesn't necessarily institute an insulin response. So, did I drink while I was fasting? Yes. Did I drink every day? No. But, you know, I had a vodka on the rocks a few nights. I had wine this past week. Didn't see any difference in my weight loss. So you can go out and you can enjoy yourself with some friends. I wouldn't have a beer. There's a lot of carbohydrate in beer. I wouldn't have a fruity cocktail. But, you know, if you're going to have a glass of wine or something, I had red wine. I think that's fine. It just really didn't affect my weight loss. Okay, coffee, creamer in your coffee. I've watched a lot of videos that say you really shouldn't do it. You're going to break your fast. You're going to come out of ketosis, etc., etc., etc. I had 3 ounces of muscle milk, and it didn't bother me at all. I can't say, hey, it didn't hurt me because I didn't take creamer in my coffee. But, you know, I really don't think you need to be so rigorous that you're not going to have creamer in your coffee or a little bit of sweetener with your coffee. I just don't think that's a big deal. But tell me what you think. Give it a try. You know, do your own experiment. Now, artificial sweetener. During your fast, I think it's fine to take artificial sweetener as well. I've seen people who said, yeah, I take diet sodas and things like that. One thing I want to point out about diet soda, and I used to drink Diet Coke all day long, artificial sweeteners do initiate an insulin response. So what that means is, sure, you're taking an artificial sweetener, you're not getting sugar, but you're still getting an insulin response. And remember, the key here is no insulin response, because insulin is what's causing your body to put on weight. Now, when you're fasting, if you want to take some artificial sweetener with your coffee, I think that's fine. But if you're going to go on a fast and you're going to be drinking Diet Coke all day, I don't think that's a good idea, because you're going to be continually giving your body an insulin response. And so I think that's an important consideration. So I'd be a little more careful with artificial sweetener if I were you. There are a lot of really good flavored seltzer waters out there. And to tell you the truth, I relied heavily on seltzer waters my first week. But that second week, when the hunger waves went away, I really didn't need it. And I really felt like I wanted water. Again, I was really thirsty in my second and third week because I wasn't supplementing my sodium chloride. But even in my fourth and fifth week, when I went back and I was hydrated, water just seemed best for me. I just really enjoyed it. Normally I don't, but I did. So that's sort of my thought on that. Oh, I guess I already talked about diet soda. I really don't think it's a good idea. Maybe once in a while, sure, but you know, stick to seltzer waters or something like that. No sense putting all that artificial sweetener in your body. Okay. Now, broth is a different consideration. So during the first 4 weeks of my fast, I didn't take any broth. Some people propose, and I think Dr. Jung mentions this in his book, that you can have a bone broth, or sort of a homemade chicken broth would be okay. As I entered my 5th week, I decided that it would be a good idea to sort of prepare my body for the refeed. And one of the ways I decided that I would do that is I would take chicken broth. So starting about, I think, the 3rd or 4th day of my 5th week, I started with 8 ounces of broth at noon around lunchtime, and in the evening around dinner time. And then the next day, I did that for the first day. Then the next day I took 16 ounces at lunch and 16 ounces at dinner. I was really trying to sort of get my body used to taking in the volume. I wanted to see what my volume can do. Now, one of those days, I had missed the broth at lunch. I was a little bit busy. I wasn't really thinking about it. I had the broth at dinner time, 16 ounces, and it was amazing. By the way, it's going to taste amazing because you haven't been really giving your taste buds a lot of flavor. And it was so good. And I was sitting there, I was working late, and I thought, you know what? I didn't have any broth at lunch. Maybe I'll have a second 16-ounce cup of broth. I had that second cup, and boy, I regretted it. So I got a stomach ache that lasted for like 2 or 3 hours. That taught me that volume is very important. So one of the things I now know, it should have been obvious to me, but even just taking that second 16 ounces of broth, which is basically water, it was just too much for my stomach. And I got a not so nice stomach. It wasn't like I was doubled over in pain, but I was very uncomfortable. So that taught me as I refeed that I have to really be careful about volume. Like I said, it should have been common sense, but you know, sometimes we have to just make these mistakes. Now, the last thing I'm going to say about broth is, and this was really unfortunate for me, is that it caused my hunger to come back. Now, I said I wasn't really hungry in my 5th week, but that was what I was, when I said that, I really meant like before I started taking the broth. In the last 3 or 4 days of my fast, when I was taking that broth, I started to get hungry again. And I really hated that feeling. You know, it was just so nice not to have it through, you know, weeks 2, 3, and 4. So if you're thinking about taking broth during your fast, I just have to tell you, I don't think it's going to be a good idea. I don't want you to go on a micronutrient fast and have broth every day and then say, well, Dave said I wasn't going to be hungry and I'm hungry, you know. Well, first of all, I can't say whether you are or aren't going to be hungry. I can only talk about my own experience. But I can tell you, when I had that broth every day, it brought my hunger back, and I just didn't want it. So I stopped taking the broth after a while, and that was my choice. Okay, so in the end, what do I think? Don't fast if you're under 18. It's just really not. You're still growing. It's not proven scientifically. Maybe somebody will do a study one of these days, but fasting just isn't good for you if you're still growing. Okay, I can't say that enough. Just don't do it. If you're under 18, I really, really, really suggest that you don't do it. Let's talk a little bit about family and friends. One of the reasons I want to make this video is because I want to sort of dispel some of those myths that fasting is dangerous. It could be dangerous if you water fast. It could be dangerous if you don't refeed properly. That's why I'm going to do a separate video on refeeding. But what you're going to find is that your family and your friends will be very, very upset when you tell them you're going to decide to do a fast, because a lot of people associate fasting with starvation, and that scares people. They're like, oh, you're gonna die, you know, you can't go without food for more than 4 or 5 days. Well, it's not true. Well, it's true if you're really thin, but if you're like me and you've got an extra 65 pounds of fat kicking around, you can live for a good long time. I think we're a little more like bears than we think. But think very carefully about who you tell and how you discuss it, because we're social creatures and we eat together and we do things together. Your family and your friends may not understand. And there may be some education that you need to do to sort of get them to understand that this isn't the craziest thing that you've ever done. Fasting isn't for everyone. I was watching a video. There's a very good video out there. I think if I can put a link to it, I'll put a link to it. It's a BBC video about an individual that sort of went on a quest to find out how to stay younger and more healthy. And in that video, he does come across fasting, and he fasts on the recommendation of a UCLA scientist for 4 days. And he's really suffering during those 4 days. I felt really bad for the guy. It was really hard for him. So I realized as I was watching this video, you know, everyone may not really find fasting to be for them. Now, I do want to say one thing about that video. If you watch it, what he did every day was he took a cup of broth. And that sort of leads me into this thought. You know, when I took the broth, I was hungry. When I didn't take the broth, I wasn't hungry. So he went through those first 4 days and he had that broth. It never really seemed to me like he got that joy at day 3 and day 4 that I got, or that other fasters I've seen on the website get. So again, I really would say fasting's not for everyone, but if you're going to do it, stay away from broth. At least in the beginning. You're going to have that hunger, but you know, if you're really interested in sticking it out, it could be very enjoyable, and you'll enjoy the weight loss. But it's not for everyone, so it may not be for you. Of course, intermittent fasting is a different beast. Not eating between meals, giving yourself at least 12 hours at night without eating. That's something everyone can do, and that's something that everyone should do. All right, now this is my favorite part about fasting. For me, totally. I've been on plenty of diets. I've been on low carb diets, I've been on low fat diets, I've been on just calorie restriction diets. This diet for me was by far the best, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you pay up front. First day is hard, second day is harder, third day is okay, fourth day is great. hunger waves go away. After that first week, like I said, I wasn't hungry. I was getting my micronutrients, so I was feeling okay. Aside from that period in the 4th week where I really wasn't taking care of myself and I ended up getting that sinus infection, it's been just a breeze. Now, I shouldn't say it's easy. You do over time start to realize how much you miss eating food, and being social, going out with friends, having lunch, eating with your family. But in terms of dieting, not nearly as tough as any other diet I've ever been on after that first week. Okay, so you pay up front. When you're fasting, you're paying up front. One of the main reasons I'm fasting for 5 weeks is because I've already invested in that first week. I'm having a good time. I'm losing weight. Why stop? Okay, as long as I'm healthy and I'm feeling okay, I don't see a reason to stop. You pay up front. That's what I like about it. Now, if I were to go back and do it again, or say, okay, this is what I think you should do. If I had stopped at the end of that 3rd week, I probably would have said, oh, this is beautiful, this is great. So I think 3 weeks is optimal. Like I said, that 4th week, maybe I can't talk about it a little bit. I wasn't taking care of myself. The 5th week, I was missing food a little bit. I started to dream a little bit about eating. I've heard other people say the same thing. But my goals are personal. I want to really get down below 200 pounds. That'll get me within striking distance of my goal weight, and at that point I can intermittent fast to get to really where I want to be. So for me, the 5-week fast worked, but if I were just to suggest to somebody, like a friend or something, oh, maybe just do 3 weeks, you know, it'll fit more into your lifestyle. You won't really feel like at the end like you're missing out on life in that sense. Of course, you always know you're going to refeed at some point, but I guess if I were to really recommend it, I would say, you know, those first 3 weeks. The first week you pay, the second 2 weeks you enjoy it, you get that great weight loss. So what I'd like to do is just say, if you have suggestions, thoughts, questions, send me an email. I got an email address, thefastingjournal@gmail.com. It's something that I'd like to sort of start a community of those of us who fast or interested in fasting. I've been researching refeeding, as I mentioned. I think it's an important concept. I want to do a video on it, share my experience, show you the things that I did right, show you the things that I did wrong, so you don't make the same mistakes. You can do the same and share those, and we'll sort of share the experience. So thanks for spending the time. I've enjoyed making this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I certainly hope it's been informative, and thanks again for watching.